What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fire Emblem 3 Houses Blue Lions Maddening Mode or low turn count playthrough. I'm Mekkah. I'm not playing, I'm just commentating. Before we get into things, and we really want to get into things, I'm going to go over the units that we have real quick, both new and old, because there's a lot to update. The chapter that's coming up, the Gronder Field Battle, Chapter 7, is probably the toughest one in all of Part 1, or at least one of the toughest battles. It's a route map, but we don't really have any of the tools that we need to cheese them out route map quite yet. The enemies are pretty strong. A lot of them have battalions, a lot of them are units from other houses or their replacements, and they're pretty tough to deal with. Even for our own units, even for units like Felix, Byleth, Dimitri, units that we've been training and breaking levels for all along, and even units that we recruited out of house that are usually stronger than units that we would have trained up to this point, like Leone and Hilda, who's also been recruited. So I'm going to go over these units individually real quick, as well as some other specific preparations. First off, we have Byleth. Byleth has been rushed to several new weapon levels: C Lance, C Bows, B Authority, C Heavy Armor, and E Plus Flying. And the way this has been done is through faculty training in a monastery. This is something that I haven't really shown off because I'm not showing the monastery, but it is something we've been doing since roughly Chapter 4, since that's when we sort of freed up the opportunity to use professional points on that instead of getting our professor level up. So we've been working on that in the shadows. The C Lances and E Flying or E Plus Flying is mostly for the Pegasus Knight class. You can certify for that guaranteed with C and D Flying, but you can reset for it and get it with E Plus Flying instead. C Bows is for close counter access, and it also helps with recruiting Bernadetta. Bernadetta's not deployed here, but she has been recruited, and it also gives you access to the Killer Bow. C Heavy Armor is for the weight -3 skill to increase our attack speed, and B Authority it's pretty overkill for battalion access as it is now, but it allows Ignatz and Dorothea to be recruited without getting supports with them. And we do need some out-of-house units to make this chapter the most reliable it can be, so that's Byleth. Dimitri is pretty important. He kills a lot of enemies on this map, and for that he needs a lot of high stats, so we've been rigging him. He would have performed better if he was an archer, but we decided to go with Lord. This is because it lets him build authority quicker, and the charm skill that he has helps reach damage thresholds versus enemies such as enemy Petra. Blaze is needed again on this chapter for him, so the high authority rank is really helpful, and having C Bows helps for getting close counter, as then he can enemy phase while using a bow. Bows are actually surprisingly good on enemy phase if you have close counter compared to how they are in previous games. They're actually the best one-to range you can possibly get in a lot of cases because javelins and hand axes are so garbage. For this reason, we also have Felix as an archer. We need one that has high stats and 1-3 range, and bow range +1 from archer does give us that. Felix also has close counter from C Bows, and he's going to be very useful against the golden deer in particular. And Felix having to be an archer for this map is a big reason why he's been trained to level 10, and he's going to further snowball from here on out. In a previous video, I mistakenly said that Dimitri was going to master hit +20. He actually isn't. There isn't enough time for that, but Felix definitely is going to do that at some point. Hit +20 is a super good skill. Then we have Sylvain. We've really been trying very hard to feed Sylvain EXP, especially boss kills, and get into level 10. And on this chapter, we're just making him an adjutant, actually. We got him to level 10, reclass him to Brigand, and that's mostly just so he can gain EXP in that class and learn Death Blow at some point. We're going to make him adjutant to Dimitri because that gives Dimitri plus attack, and Dimitri needs all the attack that he can get. We're equipping Sylvain with a lance as an adjutant so he can reach a lance. This is actually pretty close to reaching Swift Strikes, which is pretty insane when you think about it. I usually get it like Chapter 8, but in this case he's going to get there soon. Then we have the newly recruited Leone and Hilda. Leone was introduced in the paralogue chapters already, so you kind of know what she can do. And Hilda is pretty good as well. They both have similar stats to a Chapter 5 recruited Catherine, but unlike Catherine, they can be deployed in this chapter, whereas the professors and the faculty, they generally have to sit out on the ground of field battle. The nice thing about these out-of-house units is they come at higher levels, so they need less XP to get to level 20 and have access to advanced classes, which is a pretty big deal. Hilda actually certified for Armor Knight during this month, and that gives her a personal 12 defense to work with, while being a Pegasus Knight if you want her to be, and that lets her to survive as long as she dodges like one attack in Chapter 7. They've been tutored a little bit to C+ Bows for Leone for Break Shot and C+ Lances for Hilda for Shadow Slash, 2 attacks that nerf enemy defenses for 1 turn only, but still helpful enough. And thankfully they start really close to those benchmarks, so that wasn't a whole lot of work, but it's worth noting. Ignatz has also been recruited, pretty decent filler for this map thanks to being an archer with +1 bow range. He has a personal skill that gives him +20 hit, and he has Break Shot, which also debuffs enemies, so it's actually more helpful than you might think. We finally recruited Marianne, and we deploy her again for Physic. Better than Mercedes, since she's a priest, and she has higher magic, and therefore she has more uses, higher range, and more healing. We actually don't want to have Linhardt for this chapter because unlike Marianne, Linhardt's replacement unit as an enemy doesn't have the physics spell, which is integral to baiting him early on. The duo, Flane and Lysithea, will once again be making appearances, but mostly for their utility in moving other units with Smite, Rescue and Warp respectively. Lysithea has one big change happen to her in that she got access to the Thyrsus, which is going to give her 4 range with her spells. It also gives her some kind of defensive powers, and that's actually going to come in somewhere during the chapter. Lysithea will actually not be the primary warper of this run, since she's liking the XP to reach Bishop quickly due to needing to be recruited so early in the run to save turns in chapter 5, but she still wants to get there eventually, and she has been integral in getting people to places for XP distribution and turn saves. One of the tools we used to train Lysithea's faith rank to B is choir practice, where you pick 2 students to practice with. One of these had to be Lysithea, but the other one we picked units like Marianne, Hilda and Lawrence for because we needed to get them to B support in order to recruit them as soon as possible. So we've been picking them very deliberately. Leonie, Bernadetta, Ignaz and Dorothea on the other hand were recruited by just meeting their requirements. Somewhat interestingly, we also have Ferdinand on our squad through mission assistance, not because we want him on our side, but because we don't want him on the enemy side. He has a personal skill called Confidence, which gives him plus 15 hit and avoid at full HP, and that's very annoying to deal with when he's an enemy. So by having him as a mission assistant, we make sure that he gets replaced by a generic enemy that doesn't have that personal skill. Finally, it's worth noting that the paralogues that we had in the previous video take place in the same month as this battle, so we still get the bonus of the 3 cooked deified fish. That means we get dexterity plus 3, defense plus 3, and speed plus 3 for every unit. Alright, let's get into the actual battle. Disclaimer, this is going to be very difficult to commentate properly. I can't do all the justice, I can't do all the planning that went into this justice because of how elaborate the planning had to be, but we're going to try our best. So Byleth starts us off by hitting this Cavalier and positioning herself in a way that both Felix and Dimitri can position herself next to her as they gang up on the next Cavalier and both get 20% extra experience. So that's cool. Then we also use Stride with Ignaz on these units as well as on Flame. And Ignaz is actually going to be smited into position by Dedu right away after this so that he's in position to stride again on the next turn. Leonie goes for a shot on this center ballista. The story makes like a really big emphasis on how important taking the center is in this battle. And personally when I play casually I find it easier to beat Gronder field if I don't take the center and instead go slowly to the right. But in order to get the lowest turn count we have to do sort of, you know, pitfallish things to go faster. This ballista can actually kill Lysithea with a critical hit, but the Thyrsus effect can prevent that. It gets like a free Pavai's Aegis effect. And in this case, that Aegis effect did activate, so Lysithea didn't die. Felix, if he doesn't have enough strength, he can actually field the one out of the Cavalier that he killed. And in that case, you would need a Crystal Fraldarius proc, but in this case, we did not. On that, just a bunch of enemies moving forward, and we have to get ready for turn 2. So on turn 2, Hilda hides in a forest by dismounting and uses Shatter Slash on this archer to weaken him for a kill with Felix later on. And from there we have the Dew use another smite to get Ignaz into the square that he needs to be to smite everyone else that he needs to on this turn. He targets Dimitri and then everyone else in that group gets hit. Now what we need to do next is we need to free up the ballista for us to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to kill that ballista using Dimitri. And now what we're going to do after we heal up Felix, after he goes off on his own, is we use Felix to finish off that random archer that Hilda weakened with Shatter Slash. And then we can actually use Leonie to use the ballista. I believe to use a ballista in 3 houses you just need to have an existing bow rank. And even though Leonie is on a horse, she can still use it, funnily enough. Which she can't do after using it. Now hitting that guy will make Ferdinand's replacement rush us. Again, Ferdinand is our mission assist unit, so he's not on the field. But we do need to kill his replacement. And Byleth positions herself in a way that baits another group of enemies. Byleth wants to dodge an enemy phase because she is using a battalion below 1/3 of health, which means it doesn't have a whole lot of HP on it or a lot of durability on it. And we want to preserve that durability. In fact, we want to keep as many low health battalions as we can, because we want to make use of skills like Battalion Wrath and Battalion Fighters later on. So we're actually building like a whole supply of them. So we bait that guy with Byleth, dodging the hit, because we're actually going to make use of Battalion Fighters later on in this map, which is why Byleth is carrying that 1/3 health battalion to begin with. And now we've aggroed pretty much all the golden deers and they're coming towards us. And this is the advantage of being in the middle of most of our units, is we are near each other. Byleth needed to not kill that enemy that she faced on enemy phase, because we wanted that one other golden deer guy to come towards us to finish that guy off. If we had killed him, he wouldn't have a reason to aggro us. Now, unfortunately, because of the way that we strided, some people ended up being left behind, particularly Scythia, and we wanted her to be more forward for this next couple turns, so we used Smite and Rescue to get her up front. And now we're going to use Miasma at full range thanks to the Thyrsus to weaken Ferdinand's replacement. Now, even though this is a generic enemy, he's really strong. Part of it is his higher stats than most enemies we've faced so far, but also the battalion is not helping either. That lets him gambit our units if we let him live, or just generally be a pain in the butt. So we use 3 units to kill him, the Scythia, then Leone, and then finally we're going to finish him off with Felix later. Hilda is going to get a pot shot in after using her iron bow to, avoid a counterattack. Funnily enough, you can in this game, if you didn't know already, you can mount before starting your move and then move away and cancel. And we're really going to use that in this playthrough, particularly on this turn, to get her back on the tile where she's at, so that Felix and her can both be on a forest, not giving the enemies any forests, and finish off that Cavalier with a 3-range bow shot. Now, Byleth is going to position herself in a way to be in range of the Pegasus Knights that flew in from the north. This would include Ingrid, if Ingrid was actually on the map. But they're playing Blue Lions, so she's not. I just remember Ingrid like completely murdering me on this map. But yeah, Dimitri is once again going to be in range to get the speed bonus from Byleth. And it's kind of hard to see because of all the like conflicting red lines, but the AI on the Pegasus Knights is really weird. They will always target Byleth for some reason. I don't know exactly why this is, but it's being taken advantage of both here and in the actual speedrun of this game. We had Leone move away from the Ballista, and we took it over with Ignatz, who used it to great effect for doing 0 damage to Petra. This is just to make Petra go like, hey, I'm getting attacked, I need to move around. And we also bait Linhardt into using Physic, and it also causes him to move forward. Now, Byleth is going to take advantage of the weird AI by using Vantage, or rather Battalion Vantage, with a Steel Bow Plus to kill them. It would suck if she missed, but at the very least, it's not the end of the world because it will keep targeting Byleth, even though there's a lot more vulnerable targets in range. But now that we've aggroed the majority of both the Golden Deer and the Black Eagles, we should be in solid shape. Thankfully, Hilda re-equipped something else thanks to Felix's help. She got an Iron Axe from Felix at the top of her inventory, so she doesn't have to use her bow, because she doesn't have close counter. On turn 4, we once again have to move Lysithia around. Her low mobility is really annoying to work with, but she's a pretty good candidate to weaken the Hilda replacement. She's going to use Dark Spikes, even though Hilda's replacement is not on a horse. It's just her most accurate spell, and it's pretty powerful as well. And then we're going to finish off this random Cavalier using Smash for the sake of accuracy. We can kill off the replacement of Hilda using Felix and his usual ridiculous stats. We have to properly position Hilda, so that apparently takes some time. That positioning is important because it lets Felix make use of Hilda's personal skill to get +3 attack, and that can make a difference, even though Felix's strength is really good. Next up, we have to deal with the enemies on the hill as well as Petra. So we're going to move Byleth down once again to get a shot at this random Cavalier that we can weaken for someone else to kill. If the Pegasus Knights were alive, again, she would be in range of them here probably. The positioning of our units is pretty precise. We're equipped the mini bow. Doesn't matter on Dimitri because he's has close counter anyway, so it's fine if he's in range like that. Use the blue lion brooch, not for this turn in particular, but later on he has to fire a blaze at a group of enemies, so we can't afford to miss that one. So the charm bonus is nice. It might seem overkill because Dimitri's charm is ridiculously high, but maddening enemy charm is really high on like any enemy type except for monsters. Leone is actually using the Thunderbrand. Again, the game kind of makes you think that Catherine is like the user of the Thunderbrand, or at the very least you need a crest to use it, but Leone is just going to take the damage like a champ. Ignatz is about to face a bunch of enemy mages, so we're going to have him use a Pure Water just so he can survive that. And Leone gets the damage healed off by Marianne anyway, so the fact that she didn't have a crest wasn't really all that relevant. It is worth noting at that point that there would be a difference between the way that Dimitri and Byleth are positioned if Dimitri were an archer instead, but the route was made instead with Dimitri as a lord, again because of that aforementioned authority thing that we had going on. I guess it's also a good time to mention the gimmick that this map has, where if you let enemies defeat each other, like in this case the Golden Deer and the Black Eagles, if you had them defeat each other, they would eventually gain stat boosts that you don't want to deal with, so you're actually incentivized to get guard away to get kills yourself. So Byleth gets a kill on Petra using the Sword of the Creator, or rather she would if she hadn't missed, so we're going to use some Divine Pulse shenanigans to make sure we don't. It's worth noting that Byleth is both getting the boost from Dimitri's B support for +2 might, as well as Dimitri's charm skill from being a lord, which is +3 might. So that actually pretty neatly lets her reach the threshold that she needs to with Sublime Heaven, or whatever the replacement is, Ruptured Heaven. Hilda's rescued upwards because she needs to be somewhere else than on the right side. We're going to use Break Shot to weaken this random priest from the Alliance. And then Petra, I mean, Byleth is going to try again with the Sword of the Creator. This time actually going to kill. As you can see, she's only overkill by 3. So Dimitri's support being here is a huge difference. Dimitri needs to be healed by Marianne to make sure that he survives all these mages on enemy phase, because he's going to fire a Blaze Gambit at them to both freeze them in place and make sure they're getting countered. So that's why the changing plans happened. I think Marianne initially healed someone else, but this change allows Dimitri to actually take all these hits. Everything else is basically going to be the same. That is the blessing of recording an LTC with the actual Divine Pulses, so that you can actually undo your mistakes a little bit. I remember having a lot of frustrations recording videos on my own, not Let's Plays, but like LTC kind of videos, and realizing, oh, I made like a very minor mistake, I have to do everything all over again, like the whole chapter from the beginning. Especially annoying in like longer chapters, such as this one would be. You just move on, like someone like one wrong square and it's all wrong. So now we move Byleth once again in range with Dimitri to give him a Gamut boost and an XP boost. Trade around some weapons. We already got the Blue Lion. I think someone said it was pronounced Brooch. Broach, there we go. And we're going to use the Blaze Gambit on Caspar and 2 of his mage friends. I don't know why Caspar's associated with mages like this, that doesn't seem like his type. But this freezes them all in place, forces them all to attack Dimitri, who has a bow equipped to counter them all in enemy phase. And they were severely weakened, and their battalion boosts removed where applicable. Here's another reason why the Scythia had to be moved forward after the stride through like smites and rescues, is to warp Felix down a little bit to put him in range of some of Claude's friends, and I believe Claude himself is also in range with his longbow. You have to be careful with Claude in this chapter because he has a Blaze Gambit, and if he can, he will one-range you with it.
Let's get to it.
Leonie's going to finish off this guy that Ignat used Break Shot on, once again with the Ballista. I'm very surprised to see the Ballista have so much use in this chapter, because I personally almost never want to use it when I'm playing this casually. It's kind of a weak weapon, and it also has a very lackluster animation. Hilda finishes off this one random magical unit, and the Deuce is going to come in and have a very useless activation of his personal skill, because he's not in range of enemy means. So Raphael's in a position to beat out Edelgard. Even though Raphael's not with us, he's still being very important to get Edelgard in here. And Dimitri manages to survive all these guys thanks to the physic. And partially, I'm sure Byleth's support is also helping a little bit, you know, in a way. Maybe it's just mental support, I don't know. And you'll also notice that, like, Sylvain's XP is also going way up. Claude was baited towards Felix. This is why the 3 range was so important to have on him. And Raphael actually fights Edelgard like a Chad and almost one-rounds her. I don't believe there are any people available to heal Edelgard anymore. I do believe Linhardt is dead. So that's going to leave her weakened for one of our units to get the boss kill on, which is going to be very nice. As you can see, Felix has to hit someone in a forest, but he still has like 80 hit. He does get a support bonus from Ingrid, who is his adjutant, so that's going to be very nice. I think it's funny that Raphael decided to do what he did, because he could have killed, say, Hilda or Ignatz, but he decided, it's like, alright, I see the leader of the Empire right here, I'm just gonna quadruple her in the face. So Felix is in range to fight Claude, but he needs a good weapon to do so. He already has the Lance of Ruin, but we also have the Thunderbrand, which can potentially be better, so we're gonna do a nice little fancy trade chain to show it off, that we could have gotten it to him if we wanted to. The Thunderbrand doesn't kill one hit, but he does double Claude, thanks to the Brave effect. The Lance of Ruin just kills in one hit because of our Felix's really good stats. If we had a more offensively lacking Felix, we would have needed Thunderbrand's hits to land both. We decided to go with the Thunderbrand in the end, but as you can see, it doesn't really matter. It seems a little bit less reliable because you have to land 2 hits over 1. Claude is pretty dodgy even though he's not in a forest. Now we only have a handful of enemies left to kill. And we can get some self-improvement using the stabs with our staff users in the back, and get him some healing as well. For great justice, you know, for story reasons, we're going to kill Raphael using Ignatz. I think Raphael should have taken the opportunity to take out Ignatz personally. I think it would have worked much better. We also have to kill Edelgard, and contrary to what I said earlier, Linhardt is actually still alive, and we do have to get rid of him. So we're going to do that with Byleth, using a nice iron bow shot. He actually gets one rounded, but we missed one hit because, you know, reliability is fun. So that means we're going to go for another hit instead. Once again, you know, the fun of having Divine Pulse available so you can reset unreliable things like this. I've had plenty of times where I record some kind of playthrough and some RNG doesn't go my way and I have to reset the whole chapter over it. Not today. So hopefully this time Byleth will actually land her iron bow shots, both of them. It's only 74 hit with 3 houses, 2 RN, so it's not too unlikely to happen. But if you're playing a map this long, then something like this is bound to happen at some point. But yeah, speaking of story reasons, we can finish off Edelgard using Dimitri, and why would we not? We take advantage of Byleth's personal skill once again, and there you have it. That is Gronder Field, completely routed in 6 turns. I hope you enjoyed this, as always. Let me know if you enjoyed this kind of content, and I'll be back next time, probably with some more boss kill chapters. Peace out, and goodbye.